So, having just read Genesis chapter 10, it starts to get interesting. So, for those just joining us here, so chapter 10 is after the flood. This is the flood where God caused a flood on the earth and it destroyed everyone on earth apart from Noah and his family. So, in Genesis chapter 10, we're looking at the children of Noah. So, there were three sons and their wives and their children. So chapter 10 looks at the descendants. So technically, it's only Noah and his family left on earth. So this really could be viewed as the genesis of the world. So if this is correct, then everyone in the world today somehow stems from these three nations. So we look at the first son, the descendants of Japheth. And what I found interesting is the descendants of Japheth were Gomer, and the descendants of Gomer included Ashkenaz. And it says here that the descendants became the seafaring peoples in various lands, each tribe with its own language. And so that was Japheth, one of the sons of Noah. The second son we're going to look at is Ham. So the descendants of Ham included Cush and Canaan, which I found interesting. And one of Cush's descendants was Nimrod, who became a heroic warrior. He was a mighty hunter in the Lord's sight, and the people had the name, as a proverbial name, Nimrod was used proverbially for a mighty hunter that's great in the Lord's sight. That was quite interesting to me. And it also goes on further in verse 15 that Canaan was also the ancestor of the Hittites. And in 19, eventually the territory of Canaan spread from Sidon to Gerar near Gaza and to Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah, and then it goes on. So we know that the descendants of Japheth were the Ashkenaz, and they were a seafaring people in various lands. And then we know that Ham's descendants included Cush and Canaan, and of his descendants was Nimrod, who was known as a mighty hunter. So Japheth's descendants, seafaring people, Ham's descendants were mighty hunters, and they found favor in the Lord's sight. And they were located in the territory of Canaan, and they spread from Sidon to Gerar near Gaza and to Sodom and Gomorrah. And we will very likely read more about Sodom and Gomorrah later on. And then the third son, Shem. So the descendants of Shem included Elam and Asher. And Eber had two sons. The first was named Peleg, and also division, because during his lifetime the people of the world were divided into different language groups and dispersed. He also had a brother named Joktan, and that was from verse 24. And looking at verse 26, further descendants included Sheba and Ophir. We'll probably read about them later on. And 30 says the descendants of Joktan lived in an area extending from Mesha towards the eastern hills of Sephar. So probably looking at the Bible or maps from the about 2,000 plus years ago, one can start to map out the structure of the descendants of Noah. So Japheth, the Ashkenaz, Tarshish, Kittim, seafaring peoples, and descendants of Ham, including Cush and Canaan, mighty hunters, including Nimrod, and they were in the territory of Canaan and spread to Sidon, Gerar, Gaza, Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and so on. And finally, Shem, whose descendants included Eber and Peleg, and there was division in the world in that time, which I need to research more into, because if we're talking about time frame, then all the other descendants would have been alive as well. So why is the division tied specifically to Peleg, because it says, for during his lifetime the people of the world were divided. So was this under Peleg's rule that the world was divided, or was it just during the time that Peleg was alive? So that will be something interesting to learn. So I'll grab a map from about 2000 plus years ago and maybe have another commentary, another go at this to see if I can shed more light in terms of who lived where at the time.